Good afternoon, viewers. Sage here, reporting to you live from 𝐊𝐴𝐚 studio. It's lunchtime here in Sydney, and as you know, that means it's time for the Mid-Market Pulse show. So let's zoom our lens now on the Australian share market's performance. The Australian shares rose today as a flurry of big mergers and acquisitions boosted the sentiment and helped the market reverse Friday's losses. In Australia's biggest ever buyout deal, the US-based fintech Square Inc. has announced to acquire Australia's largest buy now, pay later player, Afterpay, for 39 billion Australian dollars. And in the energy space, Oil Search has agreed to a $21 billion plus merger deal with Santos. In the mining sector, Mineral Resources has announced to buy a 40% interest in the Red Hill Iron Ore joint venture from Red Hill Iron for 400 million Australian dollars. And the benchmark index ASX 200 was up 91.30 points or 1.24% by the lunchtime. The index opened higher today and gained as much as 1.3%. And the market rally was driven by record buying across technology space led by BNPL stocks after Afterpay announced the merger deal with the US-based fintech Square. And on the sectoral front, 10 of the 11 sectors were trading in the green zone. Information technology topped the chart by surging over 8%, followed by energy, which gained 1.4%. And among others, healthcare, utilities, consumer staples and consumer discretionary all rose over 1%. Bucking the trend, however, material was the worst performer, falling nearly 0.5%, owing to a fall in the iron ore prices. And meanwhile, the investors also kept an eye on the Reserve Bank of Australia's monetary policy meeting and company earnings scheduled this week. The central bank, in its policy announced on Tuesday, is expected to delay its decision to taper the bond buying program as Sydney remained in a coronavirus lockdown. And earlier in June, the Apex Bank had said it would reduce its debt purchases from September due to better than expected economic outcomes. On the earnings front, some major players such as media firm News Corp, debt buyer Credit Corp and online real estate advertising firm REA Group, medical equipment firm ResMed and other companies are set to release their results this week. So no major companies are scheduled to report their earnings today, however. Let us then turn our attention to the biggest gainers and losers that captured the investor attention by the mid-market session. And beginning with the star of the ASX today, BNPL major Afterpay emerged as the top gainer on the ASX, rising 24.5% to $120.55 Australian by lunch. And Afterpay was followed by rival firm Zip, which rose 10% to reach $7.32 Australian. The BNPL stocks witnessed surges in buying today after Afterpay announced the merger deal with the US-based fintech Square. And following the announcement, the shares of other BNPL players such as Cedarwood also climbed 4% up to $7.50, and the share price of Split It Payments rose 8.5% to reach 50 cents. Among others, Humm Group and OpenPay Group also rose over 3% each. Some of the other notable gainers were the metals and mining firm Pilbara Minerals, gold miner Ramelius Resources and energy firm Oil Search. And on the losing side, iron ore producer Champion Iron, topper of the charts usually, fell 4.3% to $7.27 Australian. And some of the other top laggards were the tech firm ALS, health technology firm Pro Medicus and the royalty company Deterra and iron ore miner Fortescue Metals Group. And now, before we look at the shares that are in the news today, it's time for a short break. Crypto talk by 𝐊𝐴𝐚. The crypto market has been red hot given the Bitcoin rally since the past year. And now the most famous cryptocurrency has got competitors, Dogecoin and Ethereum. If the crypto market excites you, tune in with me, Sage, to know the latest developments about the existing digital currencies and the new ones that are joining the race. I'll help you understand the opportunities and the risks the crypto market has in store for you. For all the digital currency related developments, continue watching Crypto Talk by 𝐊𝐴𝐚. Welcome back, viewers. Thanks for joining us. This is Sage and you're watching 𝐊𝐴𝐚 TV live from Sydney. This is the Mid-Market Pulse show. So moving ahead onto the next part of the segment, we'll focus on the shares that grabbed the headlines today. And in a major development, the American financial services and digital payments company Square has proposed to acquire Buy now, pay later firm Afterpay for 39 billion Australian dollars, and this is going to be Australia's biggest ever buyout deal. Australia's largest BNPL firm Afterpay has entered into a scheme of arrangement under which Square will acquire all of its issued shares in Afterpay for an implied value of approximately 39 billion Australian dollars based on the closing price of Square common stock as of 30th July 2021. The deal will help the duos of the better deliver financial products and services that expand access to more consumers and drive incremental revenues for merchants of all sizes. So the all-stock deal is expected to close in the first quarter of the calendar year 2022, subject to requisite approval, and following the completion of the transaction, Afterpay's co-founders and co-CEOs will join Square and help lead Afterpay's respective merchant and consumer businesses as part of Square's seller and cash app ecosystems, and Square will appoint one Afterpay director as a member of the Square board following the closing. And in another major merger news, Oil Search has agreed to a 21 billion Australian dollar plus merger deal with Santos. Adelaide-based Santos has proposed to acquire 0.6275 new Santos shares for each Oil Search share in a revised bid, and this amounts to $4.52 Australian per Oil Search share based on the price of June 24th. Following the approval of the merger, Oil Search shareholders will own nearly 38.5% stake in the merged entity, and Santos shareholders will hold 61.5%. The merger of Santos and Oil Search would create a regional champion of size and scale, and reacting to the news, Oil Search shares jumped 7% up to $4.08 Australian, while Santos shares were trading 2.9% higher at $6.64 Australian. Also in the news, and happy to share with you, shares of Mineral Resources dropped over 3% to 61 Australian dollars on acquiring a stake in the Red Hill joint venture stake. And the company has entered into a binding agreement to buy a 40% interest into the Red Hill iron ore giant, and this joint venture from Red Hill Iron for $400 million. The deal, which is subject to the approval of RHI shareholders, will be paid for in 2 instalments, while 200 million Australian dollars will be paid upon completion of the sale, and the remaining 200 million after the first commercial shipment of iron ore from the tenements departing port. And the next share in the news is the share price of Cedarwood Properties was up 0.5% at $6.67 Australian on acquiring 2 sites in Melbourne's Western Growth Corridor for 63.5 million Australian dollars, and the company has acquired 2 properties. One, a 14.6 hectare site in Fraser Rise and a 39.7 hectare site in Fieldston. This will add a combined 725 lots to Cedarwood's development pipelines. And shares of Ramelius Resources rose 5% to $1.79 Australian on selling Kathleen Valley Lithium royalty, and the company has signed a 30.25 million Australian dollar deal with Liontown Resources for the termination of the lithium royalty that it owns over a large proportion of the Kathleen Valley Lithium project. And lastly, but not least, shares of Vulcan Energy Resources rose 2.3% to reach $10.03 Australian on partnership with auto major Renault Group. The lithium producer has announced a 5-year strategic partnership with Renault Group within the zero carbon lithium project to provide battery grade lithium chemicals, and the pact with Vulcan Energy will allow Renault to avoid 300 to 700 kilograms of carbon dioxide for a 50 kilowatt hour battery. As per the announcement, this agreement is in line with Renault Group's strategy to offer competitive, sustainable and made in Europe electric vehicles. And thanks for joining us. That's all for now, but keep watching 𝐾𝐿𝐴N TV as we'll bring you more of the latest news and trending market updates live from Sydney.